Hi, I'm going to start because I know we don't have a huge amount of time. Welcome everyone, welcome Chatham community and the greater Pittsburgh community. My name is Lindsay Shirley, I'm the project manager for Global Focus. And
can you speak a little louder?
Yes, I can. Oh, is the microphone on?
There you go.
Hello?
There you go.
That's better. We can hear you now.
Good. Welcome to Chatham. Everyone who's not from Chatham, welcome to this event. All of the Chatham community that's present. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Lindsay Shirley. I'm the project manager for Global Focus, the Global Focus program at Chatham, which is this program that its mission is to bring a different country every year to the Chatham community and provide like a really rich kind of understanding of this community in the year that we have to do it so that the students have an idea about cultural diversity and a sort of focus on each country individually. This year is the year of Vietnam, and we are really lucky to have been able to partner with the Vietnamese Association of Pittsburgh to bring presenters like Dr. Thang here, which is a really important component to providing multiple voices and perspectives of what Vietnam, the country, is all about. So, yeah, I'm really excited about it. I would like to remind everyone to turn their cell phones off and to say that Dr. Thang's going to present for about half an hour, and then we're going to have about a half an hour of questions and answers, and then afterwards there's a huge amount of amazing smelling food that I invite everyone to partake of. So Dr. Nguyen, who is the president of the board of directors of the Vietnamese Association of Pittsburgh, has been working very closely with me, and I am excited to introduce him to come and talk about Dr. Thang for a second. Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you the next speaker of the program, Dr. Thang. Dr. Thang came to the United States in 1979 as a boat refugee from Vietnam. 10 years later, he graduated from Virginia Tech with a PhD degree in mechanical engineering. He also had a Master of Science in mechanical, electrical, and electronic engineering from the Johns Hopkins University. 10 years later, in 2001, he left his engineer job and embarked on a mission to fight against the abuse of Vietnamese migrant workers as well as Vietnamese women married to foreigners. In short, today I would like to introduce to you a good Vietnamese American scholar and with very good compassionate heart. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to join me in welcoming Dr. Thang with a big applause. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nguyen, and especially my special thanks to Lindsay for setting this up, and Chatham University, and thank you everyone here. Good morning. It's still in the morning, right? And let me preface it by getting your attention here. How many of you are related or associated either as a student here at Chatham or an alumni or a member of the faculty? Please raise your hand. Okay, good. By the end of my presentation, you will see that there's a connection between Chatham University and labor trafficking in Jordan. And there are things you can do. Action you can take to stop it. Very interesting. Now I think I need to use this. So today I talk about Vietnam as a case study. It is the worst case scenario, sadly enough, and you'll find out why. There are two areas of human trafficking in Vietnam. One is officially sanctioned and operated by the government of Vietnam. They are not just an accomplice. They are the front. They are the one running it. And there are two forms of government-run, operated modern-day slavery. One is through labor exports, and that is under its national policy to eradicate hunger and reduce poverty in Vietnam. So under the guise of that national policy, they're sending workers overseas at the tune of about 90,000 a year. And right now there are about 700,000 Vietnamese workers in 30 countries across the globe, including in America. And there were quite a few big cases in America that we have worked on. And then the second form of modern-day slavery is through forced labor in rehab centers, detention centers, and prisons, including political prisoners. They have been forced to work to break cashew shells, and Vietnam is the leading country, leading exporter of cashews, and the US is the leading importer of cashews. And it is a $2 billion business for Vietnam every year. And recently, Human Rights Watch just released a very well-documented report on that business through forced labor. And these are the two government-run programs. And that involves government agencies, tens of thousands of victims a year, and over $4 billion business. There's $2.2 billion from the labor exports, and $2 billion from cashews. We all eat cashews, right? So beware, some of them might come from the labor camps in Vietnam. Now, because this is a very well-protected business run by the government of Vietnam doesn't allow any NGO even to touch those victims, help them expose the problem, including international and intergovernmental organizations in Vietnam. We refer cases of repatriated victims. They are not allowed to provide any service. They dare not talk to these victims. And a few victims were bold enough, courageous enough to speak out. They were immediately repressed, threatened, and persecuted. Right now, we are helping two women from the central part of Vietnam, the Montagnard, those are the hill tribes people. They were sent to Malaysia, exploited, raped by the employer. So they escaped and they went back to Vietnam by land, crossing Cambodia. And immediately the next day, upon their arrival in their village, the police called them in. They know everything. They detained them for 2 days, beat them up, and told them, anyone opened the mouth on what happened in Malaysia will be killed. And by the way, you have to pay double to the labor export company. And they couldn't pay the debt, so they escaped to Thailand. So I encountered them in Thailand again. So they came to our office in Malaysia to seek help, and now they're in Thailand. We are trying to get them refugee status and protection. And there's no talk about labor trafficking in Vietnam. Why? Because the Vietnamese government under its law, there's no definition of labor trafficking. So even if we assist a case, we rescue a victim, there's no way to prosecute the trafficker or help the victims. And therefore the statistics coming out of Vietnam is always zero labor trafficking. On the other hand, there's the privatized forms of human trafficking run by the small-time criminals. And that involves trafficking of women and children into the sex industry or child labor within the country. It involves a few hundred, a few thousand victims a year, and it's a few $1 million business, usually run by small-time criminals. And the government of Vietnam, because it doesn't have much of a stake in this, so they open the door, inviting enough NGOs to go into Vietnam to do their work, and they play that up, say, look, the world, look at us, we are fighting human trafficking, while covering up the other part. Now, However, they don't allow the churches, the temples, the NGOs in Vietnam even to fight that second small-time crowd. They don't want the church or the religious organization to build up the capacity. Because Vietnam is a very controlling, repressive regime. So they don't want anyone to challenge the authority. So they allow a few organizations overseas to do small work inside Vietnam. But civil society is not allowed to fight the problem. So the problem is still there. But they use that and wave it around the globe. Look at us. We are doing great. And for a long time, the world believed them. But no more. In 1999, this is one case in American Samoa. The first batch of workers sent by Vietnam overseas. And we stumbled across this case, 250 victims, mainly women. They were forced to work at that sex shop owned by Kyo Soo Lee, a South Korean. And they were forced to work very long hours without pay. Then almost without food. Some of the women, 2 of them, escaped and run out and beg for food and bring the food back to feed the others. And they were caught. They were beaten. Look at that young woman there. She lost one eye because she got beaten by the guards. And that guy there, he too got beaten. And he lost the hearing in one ear. And then they are threatened by the government of Hanoi. They sent a delegation from Hanoi all the way to American Samoa. Very high-ranking official. I knew it. Why? Because I served as an interpreter over the phone. And they didn't know that it was me. I took all the notes. So they threatened those 2 ladies, saying, you violate the law. You'll be punished. Stop. At the time, we are helping them to sue Mr. Kyo Soo Lee. And also the government of Vietnam. And then in 2000, U.S. Congress passed a law against trafficking. It's called the Trafficking Victim Protection Act. And actually that law is based on this case. They learned from this case. And then immediately, once the law got passed, we worked with the FBI to move in and liberate these workers. And they were brought all the way to Honolulu. And that guy is now serving a 40-year sentence in Honolulu. But Vietnam, to this day, more than 10 years later, still refuses to pay back. The High Court of American Samoa ruled that Vietnam, the Vietnamese government, must pay these workers, the victims, $3.5 million. Vietnam still owes them to this moment. The government of Vietnam is fully behind this. And a more recent case in Jordan, and this is related to Chatham University here. In 2008, there are 261 victims, all women except 4 male mechanics. They were taken to Jordan to different routes, and they were put in one of those compounds there. It looks like a prison. Locked up, their passport confiscated. They were promised 8 hours a day work for $300 a month. And they figured out that while they had to pay a lot of money to these labor export companies owned by the government, $1,000, but they figured out that after 1 year, they could save up to pay off the debts, and the remaining 2 years they stopped saving for their family. What turned out was that they were put to work 16 hours a day, and by the end of the month, they received $1 per day. That is $30 a month. There was no way for them even to survive, let alone pay off the debt. And they would be losing their home in Vietnam because they had already mortgaged off their home to the state-owned banks. So the Vietnamese government is not only taking the money, but also taking their homes. So they stopped working, and they got beaten. The employer, the Taiwanese, brought in the police, brought the guards, security guards. They beat up these already starving, sick women. And 5 of them got severely injured. but not allowed to seek medical help. And one later died. So I heard of that, so I contacted our own State Department, and they contacted me to the Jordanian government, and we worked to bring the Jordanian government in to rescue these victims. You see this here? She was beaten twice. Once by the police, Jordanian police, and then by the Vietnamese delegation down here. In March, the Vietnamese delegation came to Jordan at the request of the Jordanian government. All these victims, they were so happy, they said, wow, the government is coming to rescue us. And these are the government officials. And that lady, right in the middle, she works for the labor export company, but they work hand in hand with the government. The government came in, she got the list of all these suspected strikers, strike leaders. The government in Vietnam already held several press conferences, national press conferences, to denounce these strike leaders as traitors, to be brought home for punishment. And then they planned to force all the rest back to work on exploitation. So they came in, a big delegation, and they again hired Jordanian security guards, and they gather all these victims. You can see them sitting down here, and they're standing up there and yelling at these women. And when some women tried to escape, they got beaten up by the delegation from Vietnam. And she got beaten again, and she never recovered until repatriation. She's still very sick now in Vietnam, 3 years, 4 years later. And the strike leader, the most prominent one, on her way to being deported to Vietnam, back to Vietnam for punishment, we helped her to escape out of Bangkok airport. And now she just arrived in the US as a refugee. And just last month, she testified in Congress, exposing the involvement of the Vietnamese government. And they're still threatening her. And we are working with the FBI right now, because they're threatening her life, even in the US. Case number 3. In Malaysia, 30 victims, all males, severely exploited again. And in this case, we rescued them, and then we finally convinced the Malaysian government to prosecute the trafficker. And what happened? The Vietnamese embassy official came into the prison using the diplomatic access, right to access the citizens, and threatened the victims and witnesses, telling them that drop the case, and then you can go home. Otherwise, you stay in prison like that forever. So we got our lawyer. Vietnamese government hired a lawyer to defend the trafficker. And what happened is that eventually, at the trial day, all these victims dropped the case. And the trafficker got acquitted. And that's what happened. And you can see the picture, the man in black suit here. He is from the Vietnamese embassy in Malaysia, and he's talking to the trafficker. While the victim's witnesses are standing on the side. So the Vietnamese government time and again show that they are behind the trafficking and they are behind the traffickers. This is how we trace back how the system works in Vietnam. All these government agencies are involved in trafficking of their own citizens, tens of thousands a year. I'm not going to go through this, it's kind of complex, but you can see how it works. A very sophisticated system to lure people into the scheme and then sending them overseas and threatening them if they speak out and persecuting those who return and still keep fighting. Now, how can we deal with that? That's a worst case scenario because nowhere on earth there's a government that is so blatantly behind human trafficking. There's governments that don't care much about protecting their own citizens, but they're not part of human trafficking. But in Vietnam, they are the leading force behind human trafficking. So how can we stop it in Vietnam? That's a way. And I want to point out the worst case scenario so that we, together, we can be more confident that we can deal with human trafficking in other countries as well. Because Vietnam is the worst case, and if we can still do it, yes, we can do it everywhere. Our strategy is based on a few principles. First of all, we focus on the trafficking in government programs because that's where the policy comes in. That's how we can change the policy, not the small-time criminals. Because once you change the policy, we will also be dealing with the small-time criminals as well. Two is we have to fight at the macro level, that's at the policy level, mobilizing the entire society to fight human trafficking, affecting the law, legal framework, and law enforcement. And it has to be transnational because human trafficking is transnational. People are being moved from one country to another country. We cannot just fight it here in the US only because the source keeps producing more and more victims. So we have to bring the fight to the source, which is, in this case, Vietnam. In all areas, prevention, protection, persecution, and partnership. That's the only way that we can stop trafficking. And we use multi-component strategy. That is, once we have identified a key link in the trafficking chain, then we use all our forces from multiple directions to break that link. And that's where China University can play a role. And I expect that in a little while. Now people have asked me, what is human trafficking? Well, there ought to be three factors. First of all, there ought to be severe exploitation under slavery-like conditions. Two, the victims didn't voluntarily get themselves into that situation. In Vietnam, for instance, they got tricked. Right? Tricked into signing the contract that they never was allowed to read. They signed it, they didn't have a copy. They were promised $300 a month, they got 30. They got tricked. And they cannot escape. These women, in all these cases, didn't have their passport. They were locked up, beaten up and threatened. If they go back to Vietnam, the police will put them in and torture them. So there's no way for them to escape. So we need to have all three factors to constitute human trafficking. Now, a lot of people got not very clear about the difference between trafficking and smuggling. Smuggling is someone who wants to go to enter a country illegally. That's smuggling. Now, once that person becomes illegal in a country, that increases the vulnerability of that person to human trafficking. But it's not the same as human trafficking because it's willingly. You are willing to do it. Right? Or asylum. No countries like Australia and Malaysia right now, they say, oh, we're fighting human trafficking. Actually, they're pushing back, pushing off the refugees. They claim they're fighting human trafficking. And Canada is trying to do the same right now. And this is just an illustration. This is just outside Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia. And you see this structure, actually there's two buildings, huge buildings that can house about 300 people each. And this is a privately run prison where they still keep victims of human trafficking. They're victims. These are the traffickers, run by the traffickers. Well lit so that no one could escape. You can see the very high gate there, steel gate. No one can climb it over it, and very high wall, barbed wires all around, and there are guards right here. And this was me. I tried to rescue 30 Vietnamese women. Working for what? Which company? Sony. Yes. And the Vietnamese government didn't do anything. Nothing. They called for help. Nothing happened. Now, this is our strategy. we rescue the victims. We have several rescued about 4,000 victims, mainly Vietnamese, but also from Indonesia, the Philippines, Bangladesh, Nepal, you name it, Thailand, and then very quickly we help them. But we don't stop there. We have lawyers to interview them very thoroughly to trace all the way back to the root, that is the country of origin. What happened? Who recruited you? What's his name? Where did he come from? How much did you pay? Where's the receipt? How does your contract look like? Usually in Vietnam they have the same two different types of contract. One in Vietnamese that they could read, and one in a foreign language you couldn't read. And the two are totally different. So we ask for every single detail, so they can trace all the way back to the roots. In doing so, we are elevating from the micro level, that's individual cases, to the macro level, to the policy level. So first of all, we target the employers who exploit them, just like in the Kill Suli case. Sue him, get him prosecuted, send him to prison, and we have done that time and again. And by the way, that case from American Samoa remains the largest case of labor trafficking ever prosecuted by the US government, federal government, in US history. And then we trace all the way back the syndicates in the country of origin, that is in Vietnam. And we find them. How? First of all, we have a blacklist of those involved in all the cases we have already rescued. We post them, say, don't ever go to these companies. You'll be trafficked. Two, we train the people of the country. Say, these are the tips. If you don't see you're not provided a copy of your contract 5 days in advance according to Vietnamese law, don't sign it. Simple things that people can understand. And then, once we expose the problem, we put pressure on those governments to change the law. And then, once with the new legal framework, we can help more victims, rescue more of them, expose more, keep pushing, and it will become a virtuous cycle. You see that? Working, pushing back, step by step. And you can see here, these are listed are the different means to be employed from multiple directions to break the link. For example, in 2008, we worked on a very big case involving 2,600 workers exploited by SCAL, a government company based in Hong Kong. Big, huge company. We rescued them, the victims, and then we immediately sued the company. And then we launched a major campaign targeting the corporate customers, such as Abercrombie, JCPenney, Nike, Tommy Hilfiger. All these big brand name companies actually use SCAL as supplier for the brand name garments, clothing. And these companies were very worried about their reputation, so then they sent delegations, their own delegations, to Malaysia to investigate. And they went to us first. So our lawyer led them to talk to the victims. So they came back to SCAL with their findings, saying, this is what we found. What are you going to say about this? Within 2 weeks, SCAL yielded, surrendered, and agreed to pay back all the back wages. It cost them about almost $1 million. That's what we do. Very quickly, use our full force. And that's where I'm going to ask Chan University to join us too. Next. Now, once we got the government to change the law, what do we do next? Actually, this is one of the big things in the compound that we rescued, the big, huge compound, Roundings compound. Yeah. The next thing is, once we got the law, so that is, I compress everything into just that one arrow on the previous page. Rescue the victims and change the legal framework. Now we have the legal framework to lean on. So the next thing is to immediately educate the vulnerable populations about the new law, about their rights. Once people know how to protect themselves, immediately the number of victims would be reduced drastically. regardless of the government. So that's what we are doing right now in Vietnam. And then, at the same time, we build capacity for the NGOs, the service providers, to help those who cannot help themselves. But that will take time. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to build capacity. So we do both in parallel. Educate people immediately for those who can protect themselves, defend themselves. And at the same time, build capacity for those organizations to help those who cannot help themselves. And then civil society, that is those NGOs, will also monitor law enforcement and advocate for further changes to the law, and that's how it keeps going and going and going, pushing back the bad guys. So when we implement this strategy, we started out in the US in 1999, in 2000, and we worked with the US government. Back in 2000, we are among the only 3 organizations fighting human trafficking. And right now, it has become a nationwide movement. Everywhere, there's a task force to fight human trafficking. And then we leverage US law to replicate the model, forcing other countries, and these are destination countries, where Vietnamese workers are sent to, like Malaysia and Taiwan. In Malaysia alone, there are now 120,000 Vietnamese migrant workers. In Taiwan, 80,000. These are the number 1 and number 2 countries with the highest number of Vietnamese migrant workers. That's why we selected them. And we work in those countries using a special provision in the US law that threatens sanctions against those governments that don't fight trafficking, to press Malaysia to change the law. And they came out with the law in 2007. We did the same in Taiwan. They came out with their own law in 2009. And now we have the backup, the legal backup to fight even stronger, more fiercely in those 2 countries to protect the victims in those 2 countries. And that's where we got the witnesses, the evidence, to trace all the way back to Vietnam. No. So that is our model. And this is how it looks like. We start out in the US, and then we hit Malaysia and hit Taiwan. And then in 2010, we start hitting Vietnam. We encircle Vietnam, bringing in from multiple directions, right? The pressure. And we also work with the United Nations to prepare Vietnam to change. And they just changed. Under the threat of sanctions by the US, last year, in March, Vietnamese National Assembly passed a law for the first time acknowledging labor trafficking ever. They haven't implemented the law. So why do we have to start at destination countries first? Because usually they are the more developed countries where there's the rule of law and there's more political will to fight human trafficking. So we start from there. But we cannot stop human trafficking unless we tackle the roots. So we start from the destination countries and we trace all the way back to the origin, that is, say, Vietnam. So this is the case I already mentioned of in American Samoa. And what you can see here, I'd like to tell you some happy ending stories here to show we can make a difference. We rescued over 200 of them. Actually, we couldn't rescue about 50 of them because the Vietnamese government already deported them. But then we have a friend who's very well placed in the US government to go to Vietnam and bring 20 over as witnesses in the trial of Kyo Soo Lee, the trafficker, and they were allowed to stay in the US after the trial. So we got 220 of them, and all of them now have to be reunited with their family members from Vietnam. We brought them all over, and they got the green cards, and in 3 years' time, they will become US citizens. And this was in 2010, 10-year anniversary from the day they got rescued, and they visited our office to celebrate. Look at how they are. That's how they were back then, how they are now. And that was me. This is a case we rescue in Malaysia. So we started in Malaysia, we did exactly the same thing. We forced the government to change the law, and now with the law on our side, we rescued the victims. And again, this is another big case. Look at how they were before, and how they were then. What were they doing? The signing the settlement. In this case, it involved a big company in Finland, Polar Electro. And in within 3 weeks, they surrendered and paid back every single dime for these women. So this is our law office in Malaysia. They signed the settlement. But what I found out is this. We didn't let them take cash home because they won't be stopped at the airport and the police would take everything away from them. So they went home empty-handed. And then we wire transfer the money to Western Union. But then they found out that they didn't receive the full amount. So we later found out that the state-owned bank took away part of the money. So we called Western Union and say, you know what? If you don't stop this, I'll go on air, I'll publicize this, and no one will use Western Union anymore. A week later, Western Union called me and said, we only told the bank to stop the practice and to return all the money. And this is Taiwan. We work at very high level with Taiwanese government. In 2006, Taiwan was almost at the bottom in terms of fighting human trafficking. They were facing sanctions by the US government, and we helped step by step the government of Taiwan. And to attend, they were ranked as the top country in fighting human trafficking. And in a few months, the US State Department released a report, a study about the Taiwan model to fight human trafficking. So you can see you can change things. So this is another case that we have in Taiwan. Right now it's ongoing. We are prosecuting the traffickers. We're also working in Thailand and in Vietnam, as mentioned. Vietnam passed this law, and we now are educating the people regardless, despite of the government. Government doesn't do anything, but there are many ways that we can send information back to the rural areas in Vietnam. And you can see here a young Vietnamese volunteer passing out the instructions and tips, simple tips on how to protect themselves from becoming human trafficking victims in Vietnam. Okay. This is where Chatham will come in. So what is the next step? We continue to put pressure on Vietnam, expose the role of Vietnamese government in human trafficking their own citizens. And we are challenging Vietnamese government to prosecute the traffickers. Now they got the law. Prosecute them. We provided them with a list of 35 companies involved in human trafficking. Not a single one got investigated. Actually, 6 of them received an award of excellence in performance. And they prosecuted and investigated and persecuted the victim. What we are moving next is to force the Vietnamese government to allow civil society within Vietnam to play a role in fighting human trafficking. Why should we over here go to Vietnam when you are blocking the Vietnamese people to solve their own problems? It doesn't make sense. CNN just highlighted a few NGOs from somewhere else working in Vietnam. That's nice. It's not going to solve anything. Allow the people to do it by themselves. And this is interesting here. We just initiated a lawsuit against the Vietnamese government and 2 US companies in that big Jordan case that resulted in 1 death and multiple women being damaged forever. And 1 person is now in the US. Because of that 1 victim in the US, we could initiate a lawsuit in the US. And now the surprise. How you can help in this case? The 2 companies that we're suing are here. One is Aramark. If you haven't heard of this, you should now. It's based in Philadelphia, and it's the largest supplier of uniforms and catering services to all the colleges in the US and how they make money by exploiting these workers in Jordan. They have them produce these uniforms that we wear here in Chatham University and other places. Aramark, you see, made in Jordan. They are now defendants. And the second one, small one, is based in Katy, near Houston, Academy of Sports and Outdoors, also made in Jordan. So, what you could do is this. Write the school administration and ask them to tell Aramark to pay compensations for these 261, including the one that died, but pay the family all the damages. That way we will send a strong message, not only to Aramark, but all the other companies, US companies, so that they don't do that, because it costs them more than doing it honestly, in an honest way, decent way. Respect the people. Pay them what they deserve through their labor, hard work. So you can also form a champion team. I have brochures here. Okay. You can form a champion team in the college. And let me tell you one easy way, if not to abolish human trafficking in our times, at least you can mitigate it very quickly. That is to create a feedback loop of information. Out here, we rescue the victims, we help them, but we should also ask the victims about what happened in the source country, how they got tricked into this, what are the stratagems used by the bad guys in the country of origin. And then ask the students here in each college campus to send that information and feed that information to their peers in the source country. These are college students, say, in El Salvador, in the Philippines, in Thailand, so that they spread the information across to their people, across the nation, in the country, to the rural areas as well as in the cities. Once the people are empowered with information on how to defend themselves, the bad guys will start to lose these hands, and there will be fewer and fewer victims. That's one simple thing that all college students can do, and you can do that, and especially if you have many foreign students here, right? So they have links to their countries, and they can pass the information back. And of course, the bad guys will change their tactics, but we also will learn about the tactics, and we feed back to people, so people won't be deceived anymore. That's one easy way for all of us to be part of this new wave, to emancipate modern-day slaves. And you know how many there are now? About 13 million across the globe. But some of you might ask, what about sex trafficking of women, children in Vietnam? Are we ignoring them? No. Because once we achieve our goal of getting the civil society to be unleashed and allowed to fight human trafficking, they will not stop. They will identify and rescue victims of sex trafficking. They will conduct education and outreach to educate the people, the parents, etc., etc. So actually, we are impacting sex trafficking of women and children in Vietnam and other countries as well. And we are now training a lot of governments and NGOs across the globe on this new model, new paradigm of transnational approach to fighting and eliminating human trafficking. And finally, you can either pick up a brochure or you can go to that website to find out more about what we do. And thank you very much.
So we have a little bit of time for questions. Is there anybody who has any questions about this? I know I have a question.
The Aramark company, I was reading online that they supply uniforms to jails, hospitals, CX and the food vending services are also ran by Aramark. At colleges, hospitals, jails.
And some football stadium as well, gyms. Yeah, so they're a big company, they're a $5 billion company to these victims.
Especially with the jails. I mean, can't the government be involved in that?
Well, the Aramark company, they provide services, catering service in jail, you know, yeah, and uniforms as well. So they're making the money. I'm not against that at all, for as long as it's honest money.
That's right.
Yeah. But if it's blood money, then we have to stop that. But I really count on all the campuses to be involved in this campaign to fight for justice of these 260 men and women. I know that the school is a women's school. I used to be.
When you rescue them, where can they go? Because we can't really go back to Vietnam.
In the U.S., the law says that if you cooperate with law enforcement to prosecute the traffickers, then you may stay in the U.S. In Taiwan, we were able to squeeze in a provision in the law in Taiwan to say the same thing. If you can prove that you face persecution in your country of origin, you may stay. But the law in Malaysia doesn't allow that. So it depends on the country. Some of them have to go back to Vietnam, and there's not much we could do to protect them. In the case in Jordan, we could only rescue 1 out of 11 identified by the Vietnamese government as the troublemakers to be punished. And actually one of them, when she went back to Vietnam, she went around to different provinces in Vietnam to collect signatures to sue the labor export company, and she got stopped by, she got involved in staged traffic accidents. And the police told them, if you continue to do this, you will die. She continued to do that, and one day she was on her motorbike, driving around, she just picked up a lot of signatures. 2 guys driving by pushed her into an incoming truck, and she got badly damaged and suffered a lot of brain injuries. She's trying to recover right now after 2 or 3 years. So stage accident is very commonplace in Vietnam. Yeah, so to answer your question, unfortunately we cannot protect them all. The only way is to change the law, change the environment in the countries of origin. If we all raise awareness and use that one provision in US law that would threaten sanctions against governments that don't fight human trafficking, then we can put pressure on those countries to change.
So a lot of this has been about persecuting or prosecuting the bad guys. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about sort of the conditions, the economic conditions in Vietnam that promote this, and if there's any things that you can think of to promote like healthy labor practices.
That's a very good question. We are not against labor export. Because for countries like Vietnam, there's not enough jobs. If they go overseas to earn money and then bring back and help the family and help the economy. But you need to protect the citizens, just like the Philippines. The Philippines send a lot more workers overseas for a longer time than Vietnam. But the embassy is mandated to come and rescue and do everything to protect the citizens. What happened in Indonesia, in Malaysia is this. Well, 2 years ago, because a lot of Indonesian domestic workers were abused, some got killed by Malaysian employers. They work in the families. They got raped and abused. So Indonesia stopped sending their workers to Malaysia. Now Malaysia did a lot of domestic servants. So what Vietnam did was, they increased the number. They went to send delegation by saying, hey, you can take people from us. Don't worry about Indonesia. And they, doesn't protect the citizens. It's okay to stand out, regardless of the economic condition in Vietnam. But these government officials and agencies in Vietnam, they're making money out of these people, so they want to reassure the employers that no problem, don't worry. Those who speak out, we'll deal with them. So come to us instead of Indonesia. So that is the attitude of the government that we have a problem with.
Doctor,
Yeah.
you speak with a great deal of passion and conviction, and it's obvious that you've achieved quite a bit here. But I'd like to know personally, how did you become interested in this topic? I mean, your background is in engineering and so forth. What led you to this campaign?
Thank you. I grew up to be a very quiet person, child, very introspective, very shy. But I spent all my day out of class observing people. See why people are saying this thing to another person, why they're behaving this way. And when I escaped Vietnam as a bold person, I gave my parents a lot of grief. I said, this is not spending time in school. Then we stayed in a refugee camp in Malaysia. So my parents called me in, stay in a tiny tent, say, this is your chance to go to America. So what do you plan to do in America? I said, to fight for social justice in America. My parents gave up on me. This guy is too much. He's a refugee. He doesn't know about his own future. He's still uncertain. He wants to fight for social justice for everyone. This is lunatic. But that's always in me. So in the U.S., I came to the U.S., I love math and science all the time. So I study engineering and always do volunteering work on the side. And in 1988, the countries in the region started to do business with Vietnam. So they wanted to stop the flow of Vietnamese refugees out of Vietnam because that would cause an embarrassment for them. But they declared overnight, no more Vietnamese refugees. They are all illegal economic migrants to be locked up and deported. So I traveled to Hong Kong in 1988. When I saw that, I said, this is not right. So I started to pick up the fight. And I stayed with that until now. And one fight after another. So I keep going, but I got a lot of support. And one thing that I'd like to share with you, especially the younger ones, still in college. It is a privilege. It is a very special privilege to be able to live 100 lives, 1,000 lives in one lifetime. Because whenever I work with these cases, I have to understand them. I have to trace back. I have to ask them about every single detail of their life, what they have been through, and their family members as well. And suddenly I found myself as if I were living the life. And who can live 1,000 lives in one lifetime? And that's the privilege that you can give to yourself, and only you, by doing this. Those of you who want to be part of the upcoming campaign to fight for justice for the 261 victims and against those two big American companies, please write to me. Here's my business card and leave them here. It'll be fun for a good cause.
Thank you.
Thank you.